The prophet who built a global Ummah, how his message reached the world's 10 strongest Muslim nations. From the burning sands of Makkah, under the glow of 1,000 stars, a man stood, unarmed, unknown, yet unmatched in purpose. No army, no wealth, no worldly power, just a message, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And from that message, the greatest revolution in human history began. He was an orphan, born in the valleys of Arabia, but his words would rise higher than the mountains of Tahama. His compassion would reach further than the Red Sea. His message would travel beyond time itself. From the cave of Ir, where the angel whispered, to the streets of Medina, where mercy was built into law. Prophet Muhammad was not just building a nation. He was building an ummah that would carry the Quran in their hearts, and his sunnah in their actions, an ummah that would cross deserts, oceans, and continents, until his name was called in every tongue beneath the sky. Today, that ummah lives on, from the islands of Indonesia, to the bustling streets of Karachi, Pakistan, from the mosques of Cairo, Egypt, and Khartoum, Sudan, to the markets of Lagos, Nigeria, and Algiers, Algeria, from the scholars of Iran, to the faithful of Turkey, and Bangladesh. His light shines, pure, eternal, unstoppable. So how did one man, in one lifetime, build a faith that became the world's largest community? A nation beyond borders, beyond race, beyond time itself? This is not just history. This is the story of faith, mercy, and legacy. The story of how Islam rose, not through the sword, but through truth, justice, and the beauty of one man's heart. Welcome to Wisdom from the Minbar. In this journey, we will uncover how the Prophet's message reached the 10 strongest Muslim nations on earth, and how his light still guides us today. Before we begin, click subscribe, tap the bell icon, and let your heart bear witness. La ilaha illallah, the light still lives. The beginning in Makkah, the birth of a message that changed the world. Before there was an ummah, before there was Islam as we know it, there was a man in a cave, seeking his Lord in silence. In the heart of Arabia, a land of tribes, idols, and pride, there lived a man named Muhammad ibn Abdul, known not for wealth or power, but for truthfulness and trust. They called him Al-Amin, the trustworthy. He did not seek kingship. He did not seek gold. He sought only the pleasure of his Creator. And then, one night, in the stillness of Ir, when the world slept and the heavens watched, an angel descended with words that would awaken mankind. Iqraʼ, read, in the name of your Lord who created. Quran 96:1. Those words were not just a command. They were a revolution. They shattered the silence of ignorance and declared war on oppression, falsehood, and despair. From that moment, everything changed. The orphan of Makkah became the messenger of Allah. The quiet seeker became the voice of divine truth. The world would never be the same again. But this message did not come to a world ready to receive it. It came to a people drowned in tribalism, addicted to idols, and blinded by arrogance. Yet, the prophet, armed with nothing but revelation, stood against them all. He preached Tawhid, that there is no God but Allah. He taught justice between rich and poor. He defended the orphan, honored the woman, and broke the chains of tribal pride. At first, they laughed at him. Then, they cursed him. Then, they beat and exiled his followers. But still he said, O my people, say, La ilaha illallah, and you will succeed. For 13 long years in Makkah, he endured humiliation, loss, and pain. Yet his heart remained unshaken, because his mission was not for fame. It was for truth. It was for you. In the darkness of Makkah's persecution, the foundation of the greatest civilization on earth was being laid. Every tear shed by Bilal, every scar borne by Sumaya, every sacrifice of the early Muslims became bricks in the house of faith. This was not the story of conquest. It was the story of conviction. The prophet built believers before he built armies. He nurtured souls before he built societies. He taught that victory begins not on the battlefield, but in the heart that submits to Allah. And when Makkah rejected him, Allah opened for him the doors of Medina, where Islam would take root, and from there blossom across the world. So, my brothers and sisters, before Islam reached Indonesia, Nigeria, or Turkey, before mosques filled the skyline of Cairo and Karachi, it all began in a cave, with a man trembling in awe before his Lord. That is how the light began, and that light still burns today in every believer who says, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. The migration to Medina, the birth of the first Islamic nation. The persecution in Makkah had reached its peak. The streets that once echoed with laughter now rang with cries of pain. Men were beaten for believing. Women were tortured for saying La ilaha illallah. And yet, the Prophet stood firm, calm, patient, unwavering. When the command finally came to leave, to migrate, it wasn't a retreat. It was the beginning of rebirth. The Hijra to Yathrib, soon to be called Medina al-Munawwara, was not just a change of location. It was the transformation of history. The Prophet and his closest companion, Abu Bakr al-Iqraʼ, traveled through the scorching desert, with bounty hunters behind them and angels before them, and in the quiet of the cave of Thor. As the enemies stood just outside, Abu Bakr trembled, not for himself, but for the messenger. And the Prophet said words that would echo through eternity. Do not be afraid. Indeed, Allah is with us. Quran 9:40. Those 7 words built a nation stronger than any empire. When the Prophet finally arrived in Medina, he wasn't welcomed as a fugitive. He was welcomed as a leader, a father, and a prophet of Allah. The city lit up, and its people, the Ansar, opened their homes, their hearts, and their wealth for their brothers from Makkah, the Muhajirin. That day, Islam became not just a belief, but a society, a brotherhood that transcended tribe, wealth, and blood. The Prophet built the first masjid, Masjid Quba, and then Masjid al-Nabawi, not just for prayer, but as a center of learning, a court of justice, and a home of mercy. He established the Constitution of Medina, a social contract that united Muslims, Jews, and tribes, under the principles of justice and peace. It was the world's first pluralistic constitution, and it came from a prophet who could not read or write. In Medina, Islam gained its wings. Revelation became action. Faith became law, and believers became one Ummah. It was here that the call to prayer was heard for the first time, echoing across palm groves and mud brick homes. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Aya Ala Al, Aya Ala El Fal. It was a sound that shook the hearts of believers, a sound that still calls 1.9 billion Muslims today. And in those years, Medina became the blueprint for every Muslim nation to come. From Cairo to Karachi, from Jakarta to Istanbul, a place of unity, a society built not by swords, but by souls transformed. The Prophet taught that true leadership begins with humility, true justice begins with sincerity, and true victory begins when hearts align with the will of Allah. From the dusty streets of Medina, Islam began to stretch its wings across Arabia, calling men and women from every tribe and tongue. And from that humble city, the messenger would send letters to kings, emperors, and rulers, not with arrogance, but with divine invitation. Come to a word that is just between us and you, that we worship none but Allah. Quran 3 hours, 64 minutes. The world had never seen such a leader, one who wept for his people, prayed for his enemies, and built a civilization upon mercy, not might. From Medina, the Ummah was born, and from there, it began its journey across continents. The message beyond Arabia, Islam's first encounters with the world. From the blessed city of Medina, the Prophet began a mission that would transform the world, not with weapons, not with wealth, but with words. He sent letters, not armies, messengers, not conquerors. Each letter began with Bismillah, IRM, IRM, in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. And one by one, those letters left Medina, carried across scorching deserts and stormy seas, to the palaces of kings and emperors. The prophet sent a message to Heraclius, the emperor of Rome, inviting him to Islam, to the worship of one God. Heraclius listened, studied, and said, "If what you say is true, then he is truly a prophet." He sent another letter to Khosrow, the emperor of Persia. But Khosrow tore the letter apart, and the prophet said calmly, "May Allah tear apart his kingdom as he tore my letter." And history would record it. Persia did indeed fall. To Egypt, the prophet sent a message to Makkahis. Makkahis did not accept Islam, but he honored the prophet's letter and sent gifts in return. Among them, a servant woman, Maria al-Kabiyah, who would become the mother of the prophet's son, Ibrahim. Each of these letters was more than diplomacy. They were symbols of dawah, the proof that Islam was not for Arabia alone, but for every nation under the sun, from Abyssinia, Ethiopia to Bahrain, from Yemen to Syria. The message of Islam traveled silently, peacefully, carried by traders, poets, and believers, whose hearts burned with faith. And within a few short decades, that call, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, would reach the shores of Africa, the mountains of Turkey, and the islands of Indonesia. Islam was not spread by the sword. It was spread by character, justice, and truth. When Muslim traders reached India, they didn't bring chains. They brought honesty. They treated Hindus and Buddhists with fairness and spoke of a God who listens, forgives, and loves. And hearts began to open. When Muslims reached West Africa, they didn't destroy. They taught, they healed, they built schools and mosques. That's how Islam reached the great cities of Kano, Timbuktu, and Mali. Even in lands where the Prophet never set foot, his mercy arrived before his followers did. Because Islam's strength was not in armies. It was an akhlaq, character. The Prophet once said, "I was sent only to perfect, noble character." Hadith, Musnad, and that character became the seed. That grew into the world's largest spiritual civilization. Imagine it, a message born in a small desert town, now echoing from Jakarta to Cairo, from Lagos to Lahore, from Istanbul to Islamabad. The Prophet planted the roots, and the Ummah became the garden. When kings sent armies, they left behind ruins. But when the Prophet sent letters, he left behind believers. The desert became a cradle for a new civilization, a civilization that carried light to every corner of the earth. And though centuries have passed, the letters of the Prophet still speak. They whisper to every human heart that truth needs no empire, and that faith needs no permission. Thus, from the city of the Prophet, Islam's first steps went beyond Arabia, toward the creation of a global ummah that would one day include Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, Bangladesh, Algeria, Sudan, and India. And the journey had only just begun. The rise of Muslim nations. How the light of Medina reached the ends of the earth. From the streets of Medina, the message of Islam began to travel, carried not by conquerors, but by caravans and hearts. The torch of prophecy lit the path for nations that had never seen the Prophet, yet felt his mercy through the actions of his followers. When the Prophet said, "Convey for me, even if it is one verse," the Sahaba companions obeyed, and that obedience changed the destiny of the world. Indonesia, the land that embraced Islam without a sword, far from Arabia, beyond seas and islands, stood the lush archipelago of Indonesia. It never saw an Arab army. Yet today, it is the largest Muslim nation on earth. How did Islam reach it? Not through war, but through trade, truth, and trust. Muslim merchants from Yemen, Oman, and Gujarat carried Islam in their honesty. They treated locals fairly, refused to cheat, and prayed even in marketplaces. And people began to ask, "Who are these men who do not lie?" And when they heard the answer, "They are Muslims," hearts opened and Islam took root. This was the Sunnah in motion, a dawah that spoke louder than speeches, a faith that conquered without violence. Pakistan and India, the land where knowledge and kingship met. The call of Islam reached the Indian subcontinent through scholars, Sufis, and traders long before any empire was born. In Pakistan, Islam became woven into poetry, art, and daily life. The names of Data Ganj Bakhsh, Bahaduddin Zakaria, and Shah Rukni Alam echo with spirituality. Their words brought Hindus, Sikhs, and others to tears of reflection. And in India, Islam became a bridge, not a barrier. Muslim kings like the Delhi Sultans and Mughals built mosques beside temples, and scholars held debates, not wars, with Hindu pundits. The Quran was recited in Urdu, Persian, and Tamil. It became the voice of the people. Africa, where Islam found hearts of gold. Across the Sahara, Islam met a people of strength and wisdom, Africans. In Nigeria, Mali, and Sudan, Islam did not destroy, it dignified. The empires of Timbuktu and Songhai became homes of learning. Scholars memorized Quran under the desert moonlight. Kings led prayers in palaces. The black skin that the world despised, Islam celebrated. For the Prophet had said, "No Arab is superior to a non-Arab, nor a white to a black, except by piety." And the story of Bilal ibn Rab, the Ethiopian freed slave who became the first muezzin, became a symbol of equality that resonated across the continent. Egypt and Turkey, the power and beauty of Islamic civilization. In Egypt, Islam became a wellspring of knowledge. The Al-Azhar University rose like a beacon, teaching Quran, fiqh, and the Arabic tongue for over 1,000 years. In Turkey, Islam transformed the warrior tribes of Anatolia into the Ottoman Empire, a force that carried Islam's banner from Istanbul to the gates of Vienna. Yet even at the height of power, the Ottomans built mosques, not idols of themselves. The call of Allahu Akbar became the anthem of an empire. Iran, the flame of faith in the land of empires. Before Islam, Persia was a land of fire worship and kings. But when Islam entered, it didn't erase Persian wisdom. It purified it. The Persians became masters of tafsir, hadith, and philosophy. Names like Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, and al-Ghazali were born from this soil. Proof that Islam builds scholars from every tongue and tribe. A light that reached every horizon. From one man in a cave to 10 nations whose flags all rise with the words La ilaha illallah. This is the miracle of Islam. It wasn't an empire that spread by the sword. It was a message that spread by example. A message that taught justice when kings were cruel, mercy when men were hard, and hope when the world was lost. Every nation that embraced Islam became a mirror, reflecting a different shade of the Prophet's light. Indonesia reflected his gentleness, Pakistan his knowledge, Turkey his strength, Nigeria his faith, and Egypt his wisdom. The light of Makkah became the lantern of humanity. Thus, the rise of Muslim nations was not a story of conquest, but a story of connection, of hearts united under one Creator. And all of it began with one prophet, who walked humbly in Makkah, yet left footprints that reached the ends of the earth. The challenges and decline when the Ummah forgot its light. Every rise has its test. Every nation that carries light must guard it, or lose it. And so it was with the Ummah of Muhammad. From the heights of knowledge, power, and unity, to the depths of division, corruption, and forgetfulness, the Muslim world began to stumble. But what caused this fall? It was not the strength of our enemies. It was the weakness within ourselves. When the Quran became a decoration, the Prophet warned us, a time will come when nothing will remain of Islam except its name, and nothing will remain of the Quran except its script. Bayhaqi, we memorized verses, but forgot their meanings. We recited beautifully, but disobeyed their guidance. The Quran was no longer a manual for life. It became an ornament placed on shelves, recited at funerals, but ignored in living rooms. Once Muslims lived the Quran. Now many only read it. When unity broke into pieces, the Ummah that once stood shoulder to shoulder in prayer began to divide into nations, sects, and ego. We built walls between each other, race against race, tribe against tribe, language against language. The same Muslims who conquered hearts with mercy now fought each other over pride and power. The unity that the Prophet built in Medina was replaced by political greed and mistrust. And the enemies of Islam did not need to destroy us. We were doing it ourselves. When a masjid lost its soul, once the masjid was the center of the Ummah. It was where justice was delivered, where the poor were fed, where the young were taught, and where the women were honored. But now, many masajid stand silent, locked between prayers, disconnected from the hearts of the youth. We forgot that the masjid is not only a building, it is the heart of the believer. When that heart sleeps, the Ummah weakens. When the dunya became our master. The Prophet said, "By Allah, I do not fear poverty for you. I fear that the world will be open to you, and you will compete for it as those before you competed, and it will destroy you as it destroyed them." Bukhari. And so it happened. The Ummah that once gave zakah now hoards wealth. The people who once built hospitals and schools now chase palaces and cars. The call of Allahu Akbar echoes in our tongues, but the love of dunya whispers louder in our hearts. We forgot that we were chosen not for riches, but for righteousness. When the light grew dim, and when the Ummah's light faded, darkness filled the earth. We see oppression in Palestine, blood in Sudan, poverty in Yemen, and corruption from Cairo to Karachi. But this is not the end. It is a reminder. For Allah said, "Indeed, Allah will not change the condition of people until they change what is within themselves." Quran 13:11. The decline of the Ummah is not permanent. It is a test, a call from Allah to return to the original light, the light of sincerity, unity, and truth. Every fall in Islamic history was followed by renewal. From the ashes of decline rose reformers, scholars, and believers who reignited the flame of La ilaha illallah. The story of Islam is not one of despair. It is one of return. For as long as there is one believer who says Allahu Akbar, the Ummah still breathes. And as long as the Quran is recited and the Prophet is loved, the light will never die. So, O believers, look not at how far we've fallen, but at how far we can rise again. For we are not the Ummah that was defeated. We are the Ummah that forgot its power. And the power is not in numbers or armies or wealth. The power is in faith, in Tawhid, and in the Sunnah of Muhammad, the reawakening. The Prophet's legacy still shapes our future. Every dawn begins with darkness. And though the Ummah stumbled, the light of Muhammad was never extinguished, only hidden beneath the dust of time. Today, we live in that dawn, the hour between shadow and sunrise. The Ummah is stirring again. From Jakarta to Jeddah, from Lagos to London, young Muslims are rediscovering who they are, the children of the messenger of mercy. A global awakening. Across the earth, a quiet movement is unfolding, a generation that no longer wishes to copy the West, but to walk in the footsteps of the Prophet. In Indonesia, youth movements are returning to Quran circles and Sunnah studies. In Pakistan, new scholars are reviving the art of dawah through digital storytelling. In Nigeria, masajid are overflowing with young men and women seeking to serve Allah. In Egypt, and Turkey, voices of faith rise even in the face of political storms. It is as if the Ummah, once silent, has remembered its name. You are the best nation raised up for mankind. You enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. Quran 3:110. This ayah was not about the past. It was a prophecy for now, returning to the original light. The revival of Islam will not come from politicians or armies. It will come from hearts, from men and women who return to what made the Prophet succeed: faith, character, and service. He built the greatest Ummah not by conquering land, but by conquering hearts, not by hoarding wealth, but by giving it, not by dividing, but by uniting under one banner: La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. When that banner is raised again in sincerity, no power on earth can stop it. The new faces of Islam. Look around. You will see Muslims teaching Quran on TikTok, designing Islamic apps, building masajid in virtual worlds, feeding orphans with global campaigns. This is not weakness, it is adaptation. Just as Islam once moved from the sands of Arabia to the palaces of Spain, it now moves through screens and servers, through hearts connected by fiber optic cables. The Ummah of Muhammad has entered a new battlefield, and this battlefield is digital. Every post of truth, every recitation shared, every act of charity done for Allah is part of this revival. The promise still stands. The Prophet said, Allah will not remove knowledge by snatching it away from the people, but by taking away the scholars. Until when no scholar remains, the people will take ignorant leaders, and they will go astray. Bukhari. But the mercy of Allah never ends. For every generation, He sends renewal. And this Ummah, though it sleeps, never dies. From the fall of Baghdad rose the scholars of Cairo. From the loss of Andalusia came the thinkers of Istanbul. From colonial silence emerged the Dawah movements of Asia and Africa. The light always returns. The future awaits the faithful. The question is not whether Islam will rise again. It already is. The question is, will you be part of it? When the Prophet looked at his companions, he saw not soldiers, but torchbearers. He saw men and women who would carry the message beyond Arabia until it touched hearts in every corner of the world, until it reached you. And now you are being asked to carry it further, to live with faith, teach with mercy, and represent Islam with dignity. Because this Ummah is not a story we read about. It's a story we are still writing. The world's 10 greatest Muslim nations are not just numbers. They are evidence that one man's message changed history. From Makkah to Medina, from the desert to the digital world, his call still echoes. Convey from me, even if it be one verse. So, my brothers and sisters, carry that verse. Let your life be the Dawah. Let your actions be the Sunnah. Let your heart be the Minbar. Wisdom from the Minbar. And as always, if the message of the Prophet still touches your soul, then help spread his light. Click subscribe. Tap the bell icon. Comment the light still lives. La ilaha illallah. Share this video so someone, somewhere, may remember that the message of Muhammad still calls the world to light. From the deserts of Makkah to the cities of the modern world, the message of one prophet reshaped humanity. He began alone, but he never stayed alone. For every believer who says Allahu Akbar is an echo of his mission. In Indonesia, millions rise before dawn, answering the same call to prayer that began in Arabia. In Pakistan and Bangladesh, his Sunnah lives in the homes, markets, and masjids. In Nigeria, the young Hafiz recites Quran beneath the African sun. In Egypt, scholars guard the sacred knowledge he left behind. In Turkey, the adhan soars from domes built to honor his name. And across Algeria, Iran, and Sudan, the rhythm of faith still beats strong. Every country, every color, every culture, one Ummah, one message, one beloved prophet. But as we look around today, with division, greed, and injustice tearing at our hearts, the world still needs his light. A light that forgave enemies, fed the poor, and raised the downtrodden from darkness into dignity. O Ummah of Muhammad, his mission is now in our hands. If his mercy could change the world, then our unity can save it. Let us rebuild, not with anger, but with faith, not with hate, but with hope, and not with slogans, but with Sunnah. So, as you end this journey, look to the sky above you and whisper, I am part of his Ummah. If these words touched your heart, share this message, for perhaps one soul, somewhere, will remember the light of the Prophet again. You are the continuation of his mission. You are the proof that his message reached the world, and the world still needs wisdom from the Minbar.